Hey guys, and welcome to the first garden tour of the season. It is May 20th, I believe, and I wanted to document the growth over this gardening season with you guys. I have already noticed so much growth in the garden just in the past couple of weeks. We've had a lot of rain this last week, so I wanted to go ahead and get this recorded so that as the summer progresses, we can watch the garden grow together. If you're new to my channel and this is the first video of mine that you've watched, my name is Courtney and we live on 14 acres in upstate South Carolina. We just moved here a year ago and we live in a historic farmhouse that we are restoring. We are trying to make a regenerative farm here on our 14 acres, but we're very new at all of this and I'm excited to share that journey with you guys. You can check out a tour of our farmhouse. Lots of gardening fails for me, but I appreciate you being here and watching this. And for my faithful viewers, I'm so excited that it's now gardening season and we get to watch things grow. If you've been here for a while, you know that this entire garden was just pasture 5 months ago. So we've made a lot of progress, but everything is still very much a work in progress, as most gardens are. So there's lots of weeds. I'm still in the process of mulching the rows after I weed them. But we started this off, this was just pasture. We laid down cardboard over the space that we wanted to be our garden, and then we did our rows and used the wood chips to do our aisles. So this first aisle is our widest aisle, and it makes me happy. This is probably my favorite spot of the garden because of our cattle panel trellises. And on this first row of trellises, I have black beans growing. I've never grown these before, but they are called black coat. And they have these beautiful red blooms. They're making progress. They're already starting to climb up here. They were struggling a little bit with looking yellowish, so I gave them some fertilizer to kind of boost that. But I have sunflowers in the fronts here. You can see how tall these are. I cannot wait for these to start blooming. And then I have my little pots here that have different kind of herbs. And then if you come on this way, on this left side of the garden, I have sunflowers in between the spacing of the trellises, and I think that's going to be really pretty and add some height. On these two trellises here in the middle, I have cucumbers, just regular cucumbers. My favorites are the Boston pickling ones, but these here I bought from the store and I can't remember what they're called. They are a pickling cucumber, but I can't remember the name. And then over here on this side, I just have marigolds in between and lots of weeds. But my thinking was I didn't want the sunflowers growing too high and blocking the solar panels for my little trellis lights. So then further down here I have some Mexican sour cucumbers. They're the little circle ones. This is my second year attempting to grow them. The first year I got nothing from them because we were moving here and I had all of my cucumbers in buckets and they were very stressed out by the heat, so they didn't produce anything. So I'm really excited. These seem to be looking promising that I might actually get to eat some this year. And then I have sunflowers on the ends here as well. Let's go over to the tomato section. So this is the tomato section. All 4 of these rows are tomatoes. My goal is to hopefully produce enough tomatoes this year on my own that I can can my own tomatoes. I normally buy cases of tomatoes to can, but I'm going to try to grow them. We'll see how it goes. I killed my first round of tomato starts because I planted them too early. But these are looking great. And you can see here I have this aisle mulched with grass clippings. And I'm hoping to get all of these weeded and mulched to cut down on my work here with weeding because it's a lot of work. But let's go through some of the varieties of the tomatoes. So the majority of this aisle of tomatoes are some of my favorite cherry tomatoes. They're called Lucky Tiger, and these were some of the few producers that survived the 5-gallon buckets I grew in last year. And they're about a mid-sized cherry, so they're a little bigger than a typical cherry, and they have really cool tiger stripe color. And they taste so good. I can't really describe the flavor. It's acidic and sweet at the same time, and they're just my favorite. However, I kind of went overboard with planting them. This whole row is pretty much Lucky Tigers. So if y'all want some, let me know and I will ship them to you. When I restarted my seeds after I had killed some, I sowed a bunch and then I didn't have the heart to throw out any that looked well. But this one is already getting some flowers on it, which makes me super excited. And I don't know if you can see it from this angle, but these are cattle panel trellises. They're all over YouTube. I think Roots and Refuge is the one that we watched that recommended these kind. And I really wanted to go with a trellis that I could reuse year after year, because tomato cages just do not do a good job. And at our last house, we had done a square wooden tomato cage, which I also really liked. But for the volume of tomatoes I'm trying to grow, that wasn't super economic for us to build all of those tomato cages, nor would I have had enough space for it. So we're trying this trellising method, and you can see already these are just now reaching up, and I will use something to tie them, and then they'll grow up the trellises. So at the end of this aisle, I was incorrect. This whole aisle is not just Lucky Tiger. From here on, I have 2 black cherry tomato plants, so I'm excited for those. And then Elliot, my 7-year-old daughter, and I planted some cosmos and zinnias here, and they are looking great. They look very lush. So I'm really excited to have some pretty flowers to add color. They're also great cutting flowers, and they help with pollinators, so win-win. So this aisle is kind of a mixture of things. When I was planting my second seed starts, I just kind of put them wherever they fit. And the first one there and a few down here are called mushroom basket tomatoes. I was really drawn to the pretty scalloped edges on them. I have no idea how they're going to taste or produce, but they are very hardy looking. Like this one here is a mushroom basket, and it is the biggest tomato start that I've planted out here. Since I put it in soil, it has just taken off. The tomatoes are pretty big, so I'm glad I have the trellising system. But I have some Amish paste. This is one of my first starts. You can see it's a little wonky, but I got to tie it up. They had to fight for life out here because I planted them so early and I didn't harden them off. I have a whole video on that, how I killed everything, if you want to go and watch that. But I had a couple survive, but they're very crazy, so I'm going to have to tie them up to get them up off the ground. So I have several Amish paste tomatoes, and those are really good for canning because they have less of a water content than other tomatoes. So you're getting less juice in your canned tomatoes versus another kind. But honestly, at this point, I'll probably throw all of these types of tomatoes in a pot and just can them. We have another Lucky Tiger, but we're just gonna ignore that. This row, this is the one I've mulched. And honestly, the tomatoes look really happy. So I think maybe the nitrogen from the grass is making them happy. So this one's a combination of the mushroom basket and Roma tomatoes. So I have the Romas and the Amish paste. But somehow I ended up more with mushroom basket and Lucky Tiger than anything. But this next row are mostly Cherokee purples. I know Cherokee purples are a very popular tomato type, and I think they're so pretty. And so I had started some and they died. So then I bought 4 starts from a local nursery, and then started more seeds, and I did not realize how many I started. So I'm pretty sure this entire row is Cherokee purples. So hopefully I like them. But they're doing really well. They're getting buds, which is just beautiful. I think on the end there might be a couple of different types that are not Cherokee purple, but from here on it's all Cherokee purple. So we're gonna see how we like them. But if you notice all of these weeds here, I don't know if this was because we put a row of leaves down before we put the soil on top, and we had gathered the leaves up from over here, and we have like sprouts. It's like nuts from the trees that have sprouted into these little tree sprouts, and they are everywhere. So let that be a caution to you. If you're going to use leaves in the bottom of your raised beds or the bottom of your rows, just be aware that it's not from a tree that produces nuts. These are the only tomatoes I have over here on this section, and it's 3 Rebecca Allen tomatoes, which one of my sweet subscribers sent to me because I had mentioned in my seed haul video that I love growing Rebecca Allen tomatoes because they're that good acidic red tomato. But Baker Creek was out of those seeds this year, and she sent me some, so I have 3 of them going here. I'm so glad some of them survived because these were from the first batch of tomatoes. They're looking good. This one here is about to start getting blossoms on it, and I'm so excited. And then I have some bush green beans. These are the Landreth stringless because I don't really like the green beans with the strings in them. And I wanted to do a bush bean variety because I didn't want to have to do more trellising in my garden. So these are doing okay. My beans have really struggled. I did fertilize them with the fish fertilizer and that seemed to help. But you can see here that they're finally starting to get some little blooms. And I'm excited because we really do eat a lot of green beans. So I planted quite a bit. I need to thin some of them out. But honestly, I was just trying to wait and see which one survived before I started thinning. Down here we have a very sad display of beans. These are the purple hull pink eye cowpeas. So they're basically like a black-eyed pea. And this is the second time I've sowed them. And you can see they're just extremely puny. These are looking better than they did from me fertilizing them, but I am going to be surprised if I get any purple hull pink eye cowpeas. I mean, you honestly can't even tell what's a weed and what's a plant. They are so puny. Over here is my row of peppers. So my bell pepper starts, we're struggling. I have a bunch in the kitchen that I'm going to kind of plant throughout. The one right here that looks pretty good, this is a purple beauty pepper. I bought this one and I bought these 2 cayenne pepper plants. Look at the peppers on these. I don't know what I was thinking the size of cayenne peppers were, but I was thinking they were smaller. So they just keep growing and I'm waiting for them to turn red. But then from here on, I have my bell peppers. And we love bell peppers. I use them in so much of my cooking, even spaghetti and things like that. I use them when I saute onions. So I will do onions and garlic and chopped up bell peppers as a way to get more veggies in there. So when I have an abundance of peppers coming in, I chop them and freeze them. I even slice them and freeze them so that I have peppers ready for fajitas and things like that. So hopefully these do okay. I have several varieties here. I have Zulu peppers, which are like a deep black color, which I thought was kind of cool. I think when you saute them, they turn green just like any other bell pepper, but when you pick them, they're going to be really pretty. And then I have a couple bullnose peppers, which I've grown every year, which is just a traditional green and red bell pepper. I also have some grande jalapenos. I think I have 2 of them in here because we also love jalapenos. And I still have some from our last garden that I've had in Ziploc bags that I froze whole. Like last night we had tacos and guacamole, and I just pull a jalapeno out of the freezer. I heat it up in the microwave for like 15 seconds to soften it, and then I chop it and it tastes just like a jalapeno. Probably because it is. Over here was my first lettuce section that I grew, and you can see a lot of it is bolting and going to seed. I need to pull it up and give it to the chickens. But this struggled. It just stayed about this size the whole time I grew it, and I think that's because it's directly in the sun for the majority of the day. So I started some over in the shade, I'll show you in a minute, and it's done much better. But from here on, it's just lettuce that is bolting. Here on the rest of the row are my squash and zucchini, and a couple of them have had some yellowing leaves and they just look a little rough, but I have several that look nice and lush, and you can see they're starting to get some squash and zucchini. I like squash and zucchini, like sauteed and things like that, but I'm trying to figure out other ways to use it. And Chris had someone at work that brought a squash relish that was really good. I'm going to play around with some squash relishes and see how we like them. I'll share that with you guys if we find one that we really like. So this whole row is just onion starts, and I have gotten my onions the last 3 years from Dixondale Farms, and I've been really pleased with them. I've always grown the Texas Early Whites, and they've done really well, and they've gotten pretty big. This year they're looking a little small, but I also grew some red onions, and they have a longer storage life than the Texas Early Whites. However, they're very small still, and some of them are starting to go to seed. You can already see around here that some of them have their the little scape. I don't know if it's called a scape for onions. I know it is for garlic, but that little seed pod coming up. So we'll see if I get a good onion harvest. I am going to grow more onions and garlic from the fall through the winter and harvest them in spring, so I'm not super worried if I don't get a great harvest now. It's just everything seems to be struggling just a little bit this year. I'm not really sure why. I don't know if it's my soil that maybe is deficient in something, but it's just, it has not been an easy gardening season this far. So that's all that's in the rows right now that I'm growing. I'm excited to see how it progresses as it starts producing a harvest. But we're going to move on to the kind of orchard and berry part of the garden. I have 2 peach trees, one here and one over there. They have no peaches. They had tons of blossoms, and then we had that late freeze. So I don't think I'm going to get any peaches from the trees this year, which is kind of sad because I love peaches. But there's always next spring. And fun fact, did you know that South Carolina actually produces more peaches than Georgia does, even though it's the peach state? Chris told me that. He's a wealth of knowledge on South Carolina facts. And here we have our blackberries. I can't believe how many blackberries these already have on them. They are looking really good, but we do need to set up a trellising system to kind of hold them up and keep them from spreading everywhere. But we have 6 blackberry plants here, and I'm very excited because I love blackberries. Growing up, our favorite snack as kids was blackberries in a bowl, sprinkled with some sugar, and you fill it up with milk and you eat it. It is so good. And then over here we have our 6 blueberry bushes that have gone through a lot. We planted these at our last house and we moved them here. And I'm so glad we did, because the people who bought our last house have totally dug up our garden. They took down the garden beds and they made it a parking space. So I feel really good that we brought these with us. And overall they've done pretty well. The soil was rock hard when we were planting this, so I was a little worried that they might struggle, but they've done really well. We have some that have blueberries and some that have none, because like the peach trees, they set blooms really early and then we got that frost and it killed it all. But several of them have really a good amount of blueberries. We eventually want to set up some kind of hoop netting system to keep the birds from eating all of the blueberries once the bushes get really big and producing a lot, because we love blueberries and I would like to eat a lot fresh and freeze a lot for winter. So I don't mind sharing blueberries this year, but in the future we will probably be trying to set up some kind of netting system to keep the birds from taking all of them. Okay, so over here is the shaded area I told you that I started my lettuce, and this is lettuce that I've already gotten 3 harvest from, so it's doing really well. I also have my cilantro over here. It's a little sparse, but that's a weed. I'm hoping with it being in the shade that it will last until salsa season, when my tomatoes and jalapenos are ripe. So it's done well over here in the shade. The biggest problem has been remembering to water these over here. Over here we have a mulberry bush that Rhett planted. It's a smaller ever-bearing mulberry bush, and I'm really excited to try it. I've never had mulberries. I don't know if you guys have tried them, but blackberries and blueberries are more of what I grew up eating. But I've heard from a lot of people that they're very delicious, and typically they get really big, but I think with this one being a smaller one, it won't get quite as big. And that concludes the garden tour. I'm now covered in sweat because it's very humid and hot today, and I'm pretty sure from the beginning to the end of this video my hair has tripled in size. I appreciate you guys joining me and showing interest in my garden, because these things bring me joy. And I'm going to try to do at least 1 garden tour a month so that we can see things progress. I appreciate you guys being here as always and watching our videos and commenting and supporting us. It means so much. I read all of your comments. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video.